I became a socialist in a period of fantastic upsurge, and yet we've all had to face quite the reverse, a period of prolonged reaction. It's quite difficult to adjust to that particular political trajectory. You know, you go up like a rocket, then you have this long, erosive period where things get so low you think you can't go any deeper. To me, however, it's even more important to have organisation during a period of downturn, because unless you're linked up with other like-minded thinkers and workers, you just see the world from the vantage point of your own alienation. Despite all your running, your blood pressure's fine. Now I can take a blood sample. Most doctors say this doesn't hurt, but it does hurt, just for a moment, and then it's quite okay. And this is just a screening test, just to make sure the baby's quite okay. You can tell a surprising lot from this now. But leave you some blood behind, haven't we? Okay. So wasn't it? I think that we have a different problem than the one that Marx and Lenin wrote about, in as far as we have a developed welfare state. The capitalists decided they were going to pool some of their resources in order to create public housing and health service and so on. And we have a powerful and effective reformist tradition in Britain, which obviously didn't exist in Russia, and so they didn't have to worry about. And those two things require of the independent left that they are sometimes harshly critical of what the reformist people do in the name of socialism, because as we know from the record of the Labour Party, it very often garners the votes of working class enthusiasm and optimism, particularly after the war, and actually compromises in a way that the Tories don't. When the Tories get in power, they're very uncompromising, but Labour in power tends to be terribly weak, and on things particularly like Ireland and so on, but also on domestic issues, and particularly issues related to women, is terribly feeble. And I think that puts a duty on us to be uncompromising about reformism and where it fails, and not make excuses for them, but say so much more is possible. All right, you've given us the beginnings of a health service, but we have the resources to do this and this. To say that, all right, we've nationalised, but where's the workers' control? To put those kind of issues into place. At the moment, being a doctor in East London is a very frustrating business, because first of all, when you succeed in making diagnoses, it's often difficult to get the treatment, the therapy that's required acted on. But there's a bigger and more eroding sort of frustration when one realises that people's medical problems are only really very partially medical, and these problems are coming by default to us. Now, I see the definition of socialism as people having self-consciousness, understanding their own role, their potential in history. And I suppose in a small way that applies to medicine in some degree. You don't give Valium to people, but you give a chance for them to work out what is the problem that's causing them to take Valium.
Hello, darling.
We'd like to see the health centre being a focus for positive health education in the area.
How much trouble do you get with your sore throat? Is it every week?
Yeah, sometimes every week.
We would like to see it as a base a sense of support and a place from which people went out to tackle the real root causes of so much illness.
Heavy pain. How long you been like that?
But that is very far from what is possible.
Okay.
To try and turn the table in this period is terribly difficult.
Yeah, okay then. Have you just moved into the area then?
That's fine.
Yeah, what's your address?
Arcadia Street.
I've been every notice and I'm just leaving. Because I'm working no money, love. My microphone on.
Oh, 1 minute.
I'm not too. There's no hurry, love. No hurry.
2 o'clock.
No, not working 2 o'clock. We don't start till 4.
And a tackler.
No, I'll give you a 20 to 5 or a 5 o'clock.
What's being revolutionary? I don't know. When I was young, I used to think it was going around with a red flag and barricades and things. No, it's not been that for 15, 20 years. It's been to be revolutionary. It's actually to defend reforms at the moment, to hang on to what we've fought for and what we've got. And maybe when things get better, we'll be able to go forward. But at the moment, it's a holding operation, isn't it? And I don't like that. I don't like holding on in the same place. I want to go forward, but we've got to, and we've got to dig in, and we've got to prevent a rout. We've got to prevent everyone just running for cover and giving up the ghost. And so to hold the ground and to fight for things like, aluminium frames and Meals on Wheels and high blood pressure screening systems, in the present context, is pretty damn revolutionary, actually. And to do that, you need to feel the support of the patients, and you have to feel that they want you to do it too. And they may think, oh God, he goes on about blood pressure a bit much, but there's got to be some feeling that it's worth doing, and they give you that a lot. A lot of patients think I'm a Tory because I wear a suit. I don't push my politics at all, but I do hope that people are open to approach us about things like that. And when I have a patient who's been a shop steward and I can have a talk about, being Jack Jones's right-hand man, and we can talk about those days and the Dockers and Pentonville 5 and what's gone wrong. And, everyone knows something's gone wrong. People want to talk about what happened. Where did it all go, Doc? What about Wilson? I love that. But it may be someone who's telling me about Bangladesh and the revolution that's going on in Bangladesh, or it may be some Vietnamese anti-communist who's come to Limehouse from Hong Kong. And I get a fantastic amount of input from all over the globe, and I'm very privileged to hear that. And if people want to tell me that, that's great.
The last time I went to there, they told me they couldn't do nothing for me. Because really, the glasses are none too good for me.
Can I have a look at your foot now? Because I want to see how... I'll take this great big boot off. Does Mr. Singh come and see it, or the lady nurse? Yeah. Still quite swollen, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I always put that down to the operation.
If looked at rationally from the cost accounting point of view of the capitalist system, keeping the old and the very old alive is a waste of money. I don't think the system regards them as a good investment. They've done their bit, haven't they? I mean, once they've sweated their brows, they've served their purpose, really.
If I want to tell you the truth, do you know what? I've carried 3 underweights.
Really?
People wouldn't believe it. I used to work at the Aberdeen.
Yeah.
And Dundee, mostly general cargo. But if you couldn't carry a ton of weight sugar, you wouldn't want it. Many a time I've carried the old 2 underweights all day long at that. Because the only thing is that you got that piecework. All general cargo was ordinary day work.
All right, can you take some deep breaths in and out for me? Good. And take a deep breath in and hold it. I'm not sentimental about a non-existent East End where everyone was knees up and going down the hopfield. I mean, the 19th century in East London was a period of struggle, racial prejudice, fighting, of tremendous business organising, people who were considered absolutely unorganisable. And I sort of think that the present situation is curiously similar, that there is a new phase of capitalist expansion through the financial part of the city, not the manufacturing part, which has chosen to land itself on the Isle of Dogs. And we're going to see a social change of quite colossal nature, and we're going to see social conflicts arising. And the health divide between the rich and the poor is going to be, which is the story all over Britain, is going to be even more sharp in the East End. I think important things will come out of it. See, I don't think if you're against change, you don't say it's a bad thing that this happens. I mean, this is life. What you're talking about is the challenge and the conflicts, and things will arise. And will the people who build these new offices be unionised? Will the workers who work in them have a union? And you might find that the unionisation and the organisation of the computerised office workers on the Isle of Dogs in the first part of the 21st century is as important as the unionisation of the unskilled dock workers was in the late 19th century. Socialist worker. Socialist worker. Get your socialist worker here. Being in a small Marxist party like the SWP, which I've been in for 20 years, means I'm involved in a community of people who have thrashed out some common ground, who have a view about history, so I have some sort of way of reacting to events which isn't totally individual. And I think to be in a smaller organisation, which is actually committed to getting involved from the bottom and getting involved in the agitation and doing something, is a much more healthy political position to be. You can be much more uninhibited in what you do politically. You can think always of the end, the larger goal, instead of being constantly restricted by what might lose you the vote in the next council chamber sort of thing.
Now, which of those things do we use to brush our hair? Which one would we sit at to have our dinner?
Table.
Yes, and what would we do in that?
Part of the delight of being in a health centre is to see that when it's going well, there are 30 or 40 people working under one roof of very many different disciplines and skills.
Car.
Yes, what's that?
A gill.
Yep. No.
Gum. Gum.
Yes, can you say drum?
Gum.
Okay. What's that?
20 years on, I now look much more affectionately at things like the health service and the education system as we see it being chopped away. You realise it was much more important, and we were very blasé about it.
When you actually have the headphones on, the noises are very, very little, so you have to listen quite hard.
In a society which was organised on a different basis, which took human needs as its starting point, a society without this insane competition which produces so much unhappiness in the pursuit of so-called happiness, I think there will be a lot less ill health, and that ill health that there was will be dealt with much better.
Okay, listen. Good girl.
But that really would be talking about a very, very different kind of society. And it's very difficult to imagine how we, in our society, would get there. But that's what matters, how we go from where we are now to there. When I'm in a lift on the 17th floor with dog shit all over the floor and, to visit a crying baby that stopped crying, I get fed up. I actually understand that that is not happening because that mother is getting at me. It's happening for a complicated sequence of social crisis in which I am part of, Not the solution, mind you, but actually at a point where I can see the social consequences of words like cuts and unemployment. I see that mother with no one to turn to, scared stiff, on the 12th floor. And I hope that mother will become more conscious of what she and other women can do to get what they really need, which is not me in the lift, but is adequate childcare, is decent nurseries, is proper schools that will educate their children and not just crowd control them for the morning. No pain on the breast there. Okay. Do you drink much alcohol?
No, I don't drink that.
Never?
Never.
Wise man, wiser than me. I think working with ill people and working with people in crisis puts a microscope on life. You do see things more intensely, and you see choices and possibilities and difficult decisions more intensely, and that heightens your awareness of what life's about, heightens your awareness of how quickly we're all getting older, how little time we've got on this planet, how much there is to be done, and how easily it is to waste your time.